All right, are we live? Yes, looks like we are live. Welcome, everyone, my followers of darkness, shadow scavengers, and villainy aficionados. Welcome, bienvenue to another Villains Review episode. I'm your host, Lauro Shadows, and today my overall center of discussion is going to go around a villain of a certain TV show that, for me personally, is very underrated and also one of the very few original things that Disney has ever made, and is called Disney Iwaju. So this time I'm going to talk about the TV show's main villain, Bode de Sousa. Now, before I go to the main villain himself, I just want to tell you guys, if you have any chance, give the show a watch. Trust me, he has like 7 episodes, very easy to follow. Like basically like in an hour or two you'll be done. Very interesting story, very interesting characters, and very original, by the way. So in my personal opinion, I think the show is overall very underrated and it should deserve a lot more attention. So if you have a chance, go and see it. I believe you won't be disappointed. Now, with that being said, now let's go to the main villain himself, shall we? Bode de Sousa. I do apologize if I butchered his name, by the way. So basically, to the kind of overall background of the villain, or as I like to say, this is your evil life. Basically, Bode de Sousa, as I said, he's the main villain of the Disney Waju, TV show. He's basically this crime lord of the city called Lagos, basically, who's also a tech criminal and a child kidnapper, basically kidnapping children from rich families and basically, asking for money, in return, for the child's safe return, basically, or as we like to call it, the ransom money, So basically, that's kind of like the overall description of the villain itself, because even though there are all sorts of elements of this villain that I kind of found fascinating, when it comes to like the overall description, that's basically it, But overall, I found this villain even though kind of like simple and classic, I found him to be like very fascinating. So, without any further ado, let's go a little bit deeper, shall we? So basically, when it comes to the villain themselves, or in this case, Bode de Sousa, he is basically, primarily, he's basically a crime lord. The crime lord of Lagos, basically, and more precisely, he basically throws himself as this kind of like villain. This kind of like the man of the people, basically. I remember, I'll never forget that scene in the airport where basically trying to search for like his next victims. Basically, he goes out of the airport and he kind of makes this facade of like, hey, I'm here for you guys. You're my people. And basically throws money at them and everything. Kind of like to feel, to kind of like basically feel this like level of importance, basically. Which also kind of brings you into kind of like realization that this guy has a really big overinflated ego. But I will talk about that a little bit later. Now, I will say this: the first time when I saw this guy, he kind of reminds me like a Disney version of Kingpin, because they do have some similarities. And I'm not talking about just like the physical similarity, and everything, But I felt like, but even still, like I mentioned before, like besides being a crime lord, he's also, like I said, a tech criminal. And also a child kidnapper, because basically the entire criminal empire that he basically created, and again, he's one of those villains that created this villain empire, out of nothing, basically, from ground zero. He went to all over in like level 100. And I give him respect for that. I will give those kind of villains that kind of basically create their own reputation, their own criminal empires, basically, or gang, from, like I said, from level 0 all the way to 100 by themselves and everything. For them, I give them mad respect. That's for sure. But overall, again, this villain doesn't have any like superpowers. He's not that kind of like complicated to go through and everything. Even though there were parts of like his overall origin story that I'm going to talk about a little bit later that kind of make you understand this guy, to kind of like, basically realize, okay, I can understand, I kind of see his point, even though basically, there's like a real twist into the, overall point that he has and everything, because, and also you kind of, with a little bit of irony in it as well, which again, I will go a little bit later on. But overall, like I said, primarily, he's this, like I said, crime boss, tech criminal, child kidnapper. He has this like, small gang that kind of live on like, on the kind of like, the poor part of Lagos, basically. And they kind of like, he goes all over the place, like, wheeling and dealing, lending money, basically, employing people, to kind of like work for him and everything, he's kind of like basically kind of like a Nigerian version. He also has kind of like a Lagos, he has like a Lagos lighter version of Don Vito Corleone in a way. There are also some like, elements from Don Vito in his character, for sure. Again, not that much, but it still has some like, similarities to them. Like, for example, even though personally, like, the guy, let's get out of the way. The guy basically, like I said, he represents himself, to be very friendly, very like, open, helping others, whatever kind of like need, they're putting on him and everything. He's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll be there, I'll help you, I'll lend you money, or I'll find you a doctor, or I'll find you this and that. Like, sure, yeah. But also, don't forget, when you're asking a favor from a mobster, usually, you're gonna have to also give them some kind of like, another favor in return. Basically, like, he's not gonna give you any help for free, and that's exactly what, like, Bode de Sousa also does. Like, for example, the way how he used that little kid Cole, basically, to kind of like, to kind of like, basically help him get his next prey, basically, who is this little girl who is the daughter of like this very rich, scientist slash engineer slash industrialist, who basically, just to simply to kidnap her and, get some ransom money out of it, basically, But I will say this, like, even though, let's just put that out of the way, like, the whole friendly thing is just a charade, because basically the overall, this guy is arrogant, pompous, selfish, greedy, not to mention a ginormous ego as well. But I will admit, I give him credit that, in some capacity, in some degree, he does show a little bit of heart. Like, for example, when he was talking to Cole, like he was kind of getting ready to pay him and everything, because, his mother was sick and everything. He's like, nah, just keep the money, just keep your money. Like, you don't need to, you don't have to pay me now. Basically, that he, like, basically keep it all together. I'm a man of his word. I will help you and everything. Like, so in some degree, he does have some heart, basically. Now, to kind of go a little bit to the villain's origin story. Again, this guy has a very classic, very simple, origin story. Like, basically, he had, him when he was a child, and his mother, they were poor. Basically, they didn't have any money, and they worked for rich people. And of course, when he was a little kid, he also kind of showed that he was already a thief, from the get-go. And basically he stole a little bit of money of the rich people, and of course, they blamed him and his mother, and basically they threw him out of the house. She was fired and everything, and also, so basically kind of like the, even though it wasn't shown a little bit, but I will say, that kind of like, that's kind of like the overall origin story, kind of like, when it comes to the overall scenery, let's put it that way, but overall, like I said, he was a guy, ever since he was a kid, like I said, he showed that he was a thief, and also showed that he wanted to be somebody, that he wanted when he was younger, he wanted to look cool, basically, he wanted to buy something, to kind of make him feel like, that he's rich and everything, and also one of the primary things that is also involving his origin story is that he hates, even when he was a child, he hated rich people, because of like, they have all that money, all those things, they can afford and everything, like, you could, so, we're just gonna, again, from when you have a villain story that is basically someone who was poor at the beginning and then became rich after. Basically, it's kind of like a very classic formula where basically, like, when those villains were young, they hated rich people. They were kind of like, also kind of shows a little bit, jealousy in that place as well. It's kind of like this wish that they wanted to be like them, like that they wanted to be rich. They wanted to, be somebody. They wanted to have, money, houses, cars or jewels. Like, they want, or basically to have respect and love, they deserve. And that's basically what Bode basically wanted when he was a child, even though his mother was trying to teach him that that he's a far more better person than what these rich people ever are. That basically he needs to be content with what he has. That the family is important. That what he did was wrong. Basically, and when it comes to like buying the necklace or stealing it, and all that, which again, and which again all falls into the very classic, like, poor to rich, origin story for a villain. But I will say this: I really liked about his character that, throughout the entire TV show, you can see him like wearing that necklace, well, around his fingers, basically, to kind of like reminding him that of his past, basically. It's like even though he is he's rich, he has money and everything, he's still reminded of his past, like what he had been through, and that he was poor, and that the kind of reminding himself of his basically of his mother, and what she was trying to teach him and everything, and also at the same time basically the overall hate that he had for rich people. So that was also kind of like a pretty nice touch. So basically, again, very classic origin story, like from a poor kid to being a rich criminal, which is kind of in a way ironic. Because like one of the things I forgot to mention about him as a villain himself is that, when he tries to kidnap these children, basically, at the same time, he always tried to teach these rich people a lesson. Like basically saying, that, like what kind of, basically kind of showing like, the true colors of these people, and what they're, basically what they're willing to do, and no matter, if it's like about their son and everything, or any other children, basically, especially like, especially also kind of showing the rich families' children, basically, how people who are not rich, how basically they live, like all over the place and all that. Like that was also kind of like a nice, cool touch. Kind of like basically showing them the reality of the world. Kind of like basically what is happening outside the rich kids. Basically, let's put it that way, in a metaphorical way. I just love that. I just love that. Basically, like at the same time trying to remark the rich people. That basically that they're not all powerful. That basically they're not so special after all. But also at the same time trying to teach these family children a little bit of lesson when it comes to like hardship and real life. Basically, I thought it was kind of like a nice touch, which again kind of goes into the overall background of his overall like origin story. And again, kind of ironic because like he throughout the entire show you can see he was trying to prove himself to be different from the rich people, and yet he, all this desire for money, all this desire to become rich, himself and everything, it's kind of turning into an irony kind of thing, because it's kind of ironic in a way, So, but which kind of, when it comes to these kinds of villains, it's always, this kind of like story always backfire, that from like something that they hate, eventually they become the thing they hate, basically, like it's always a case, with characters like Bode the Sousa, I will say this, like like I said, the overall trying to be appreciated, try to be respected, try to be loved, also at the same time trying to ruin rich families' lives, kind of like staying them a little bit, teaching their children about the real life and everything. Yeah, I you kind of get the idea where does he comes from and everything, even though like I said, basically all the way from his childhood. Now, the strengths and weaknesses, I will say this, like, uh, when it comes to strengths and weaknesses, like, it's basically all up here. Even though he's a large man, and there were some moments where you can kind of see that he's kind of like training and boxing and everything. Uh, when it comes to like the overall strengths, it's all up here. Like, he basically throughout the show, he proved himself to be very when it comes to persuasion. He's also a very good manipulator. Also, you can see some leadership skills in it as well, some tech knowledge as well, thrown in there. Also kind of like you could kind of also, I can kind of comment on that. Kind of like also one of part of his strengths is also the overall experience that he had, through his life and everything. Also, I will also throw in it like the trust element as well. Because like in a way that like every single person in Lagos, or should I say the the mainland, basically part of Lagos, basically try to earn their trust and everything, which again kind of goes into the overall manipulation and persuasion, and kind of like fake trust thing. But I will say this, before he was like revealed to for who he was and everything, I will say this, like he did a pretty good job to earning other people's trust and everything. So again, so basically when it comes to overall strengths, it's all up here. Even though you could kind of say he might have some like combat skills, but when you throw him against like let's just say a cybernetic android / lizard, then it's like you know what, you bodyguards, henchmen, get it. I'll be right there, sitting on my ass, kind of like waiting for all this show to end and everything. Like, which is kind of like his true colors, basically. Like eventually, even though with all that toughness and like all this like toughness and like mean streak and everything, he proved himself to be a coward. More precisely, a selfish coward. Because even though he has all that grandiose characteristics in him, basically it was shown to all be just a simple charade. Because eventually he's a selfish coward, someone like I say, who depends on his henchmen, and he's willing to simply throw them into battle, just to basically save his own ass. Which again, it's one of the biggest mistakes that a villain can do, because like one of the things you should keep into basically under you is basically the loyalty of your henchmen. Because like because throughout the entire TV show, you kind of see that they kind of like the henchmen had some like loyalties to him, that he also the whole charade, he's kind of like caring for them, giving them money, kind of like giving them like powerful wise speeches and all that, like yeah sure, so you kind of say through all that, which can again prove the whole persuasion manipulation thing, the henchmen start to like be loyal to him and everything. Even like Miss what was her name? Miss Monday, I think she was called. Miss Monday, I think. I can't remember the girl's. He's like second in command, female character's name. I can't remember her name. But even though and you can kind of see like throughout the TV show, like you can see that he's like second in command, and him like you always kind of like headbutting, like to say basically like what it's right, what it's wrong, what should be the best thing to do. Like for example, instead of like like for example when Bode the Sousa basically got the ransom money from the little girl's father, basically she's like hey look, just take the money, let's get this over with. Because like in that moment, which also proves, which for villains like that, I will always say this is kind of like one of their weaknesses, but basically greed. That's the thing that kind of got him that way, because basically through the jackpot that he got from the little girl's father, only that he wanted money, but he also wanted to kind kind of like basically all the informations from all the informations, like and all the entire list of like rich people that he can basically take money from and all that, which is kind of also kind of goes like through the overall villain's goal. It's basically to make himself rich, to continue scamming rich families, kidnapping their children, getting more money out of them and everything, because like again, even though the overall villain goal, or his villain goal, is very simple, very classic, which is also, I will kind of, speaking of the strengths and weaknesses, I will also kind of go that he's also a guy who just not just simply is greedy, but at the same time, he's the type of villain who is obsessed with power, because like trying to be above everyone else, because, which again, it kind of goes against like, everything that he stood for. Like basically saying how rich people are selfish, how rich people are, cruel and greedy. They don't care about, us. They don't care about poor people. They don't care about normal people from the mainlands and everything, I'm going to be the true example, to the people of the mainland of Lagos and everything. Like, I'm going to be the man of the people. I'm going to help them. Like, I'm going to be the man they deserve. And yet, ironically, he became exactly what he hated, which in this occasion, that's basically what happens, So with that being said, that's basically his overall weaknesses. Like I said, he is very arrogant, pompous, greedy, selfish, coward. Also to mention, the guy has a very gigantic ego. The way how he speak about himself, but like, in a very high scale, like actually, like for example, the little speech he gave when the little girl was listening to him, or when he was talking to his henchmen, or even like that brief scene at the airport. Like, this guy has a massive inflated ego, always speaking, about himself on a high ground, basically, and again, which is, again, it's not very unusual for a crime lord type of villain, basically to be like that. Even though, again, I kind of understand his overall point of view, his overall origin story. I kind of understand where he comes from. But again, fails in the waters of irony, because like, he became, like I mentioned a few times, he became exactly what he hated. All the hatred for the rich people, trying to teach them a lesson and everything. All of that just simply throws out the window, because he literally became like them. Money, 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 money. Yeah, power. Power, being above everyone else, controlling everyone else. Wah, ha, ha, ha. Yeah, money, 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 money. That's, that's basically, and that's, basically he basically proves that, money makes the world go round and everything. Money, 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 money. Again, which again, it's a, if I can add something to like, if I have to add like something about the villain, maybe the only thing I can add is, like I said, maybe, taking care of more of your henchmen, kind of like, not simply throwing them on the bus like he did when they were fighting the giant cybernetic lizard. And also at the same time, show some like combat skills, you're a tough guy, okay, sure, maybe the cybernetic lizard could have easily defeated Bode, but still, you could have put a little bit of a fight. But no, he's like, after all that charade, he just simply, hey, you henchmen, get it, which is a little bit pathetic, to be fair, a little bit pathetic. But overall, that's basically, who he is. Overall, I understand where he comes from. I get it and everything. But also at the same time, like I said, I mentioned a few times that he's also very arrogant. But it also he had the same arrogance. Ever since he was a child. Like basically, stealing money just so he can buy a stupid necklace, kind of like, to prove himself to be cool, to be like one of them and everything. And even though the mother was trying to teach him, that that what he did was wrong, stealing and buying this necklace for what, kind of like showing off himself and everything. That he should be content with what they have. Like I mentioned when I was talking about his origin story. I get it. I get it. Even though his origin story is overall very, very classic, and also, but I will say also this: I really like his style. That's for sure. I also, as a crime lord, I will say this: I really like his style. The overall clothing, the rings, kind of like kind of show himself to be above everyone, kind of like trying to be basically he's basically trying to say like who's the man, who's the main man basically. Which also kind of shows that he's one of those crime lords that also wants to basically prove himself, even with just like simple appearance. That's why I said like he has high levels of grandeur when it comes to like his overall character, which kind of goes with the overinflated ego thing. I mean, unbelievable. Like, but I will admit, but one of the strengths I will give him respect for is definitely that, his overall, which I kind of forgot kind of mentioning, is also his tech knowledge. I will give him credit for, like, even though most of the kind of things that he has in his strengths is usually something that's kind of like, meant, like, intellectual, when it comes to like the overall things I have numbered. But one of the other things I also will mention is his overall tech knowledge. Yeah, I mean the way how he was capable of handling like some like types of technology throughout Disney Watcher TV show, that was impressive. So that's also another plus I will give him for. I will definitely give him when it comes to like his overall character. So when it comes to your final thoughts about the character, I mean, like like I said, the overall villainy. There, like, even though he was a cool one, I will still say that he's a villain that has many, 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 many flaws, many classic flaws that usually crime lords like him would have. Like I said, from overinflated ego, from like the grungia elements, kind of like speaking highly of himself, being arrogant, selfish, being a coward, being greedy, not giving a shit about his henchmen and all. Like, those are all very classic things. Those are all very classic elements of a villain like him. So overall, if I have to give him a rating 1 out of 10 of shadows, I'm going with like 6.5 out of 10. 6.5. The only reason why I'm giving a 0.5 more, because usually I will put him like under a 6 out of 10. I mean, in this case, literally, when it comes to Bode de Sousa's character, when it comes to how to be a villain, if I have to quote Yoda, I will quote him with "Much to learn, you still have." Yep, because he's one of those villains that he has still too much to learn. But even still, the reason why I give him a 0.5 is because the tech knowledge, also the overall lessons that he had throughout his past and everything, and also was what he was trying to prove and everything. Like I kind of understand his overall evil crusade. Basically, I can understand where he comes from, and everything. But even though, again, ironically, he became what he hated. Which again, I told you, with those kind of villains, it happens a lot. They became something they vow to destroy, or they became something they have hated their entire life. So that's why I will give him a 6.5 out of 10 shadows. It's fair, but again, it's a type of rating that doesn't make him a great villain, but still very cool one for sure. Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's very basic. Everything about him, everything about him. It's also something usual, that also kind of connects with real life and everything. Very, I want to say generic, like very classic, very old school, very grounded. When it comes to the overall villainy that he possesses and everything. But again, one of the biggest mistakes they always do is they throw their henchmen under the bus. Kind of like making all this theater pretense, that they care about them, and then in the end, they don't. Which is a big mistake. Because one of the sacred rules of villainy, always have loyalty from your henchmen. Never double cross them, never manipulate them, never, showing them like, fake love. Let's put it that way. I mean, seriously, when one of the henchmen basically failed a little bit because about the lizard and also the fear of being followed and everything, just simply kind of shows you that he kind of also shows a little bit of his true colors. That he likes them until they disappoint him. Which again is another thing that usually villains like him have, which of course is, like I said, they don't like being disappointed. They don't like failures. Also, not to mention, of course, when it comes to Bode the Sousa's, like also one of the things that he hates is, of course, being taken advantage of, and not to mention being exposed. All the things that he built, they were just simply taken away like that. All the things that he basically, created. I bet if his mother was still alive, I bet his mother would basically, when she will come to visit him in his cell, I can definitely imagine his mother basically kind of like simply discipline him, but also at the same time saying, "I told you so." I could definitely see her doing that, But overall, here ends another villains review episode. I mean, of course, I hope you guys have enjoyed it. With overall my discussion about Bode the Sousa's character, and of course, like always, you ladies and gentlemen, you know the drill. Like the video, comment, subscribe. Give me your personal thoughts about Bode the Sousa. Give me your personal thoughts about if you ever watched Disney Waju's TV show. What did you thought about it? What did you thought about the Bode the Sousa's character in general? Everything about Disney Waju in general, you can put it in the comment section down below. Also, at the same time, if you want to see my previous villains review season 2 episodes or season 1, they're going to be in the video description down below as well. And until then, stay tuned for more. And as always, Lord of Shadows signing off. See you guys next time. Or, as I always love to say it, later, fuckers.